Okay, so we're now in a position to start to solidify and prepare the text block for attachment of boards, which obviously is going to mean a lot of sort of gluing work needs to be done. We also need to think about the shaping of the text block. So what I mean by that is, as it sits here, sort of square in the shot, what's interesting to note is that there is a difference in height. So if I leave it like this is about 4 inches high there. At this end, it's only a little over 3. And I think what's going on is every single gathering was sewn in, which structurally is good, but as you can see here by the beard that the text blocks acquired here. But what that means is that the thread, of course, has a finite thickness, and if you've got probably 100 or so of these gatherings, all of which has at least one, or in some cases where one crosses over the other, 2 thicknesses of thread, that actually adds up to a material change in height here versus here. Which would mean that, if we were to put boards on this, we'd actually end up with, it wouldn't be flush the way we're used to seeing a book. It would actually slope in a little bit, which may be kind of okay, but there is a potential solve as well for this. And I think we can get rid of this height difference just by adjusting the shape a little bit. So what I'm going to do is move it from being rectangular in profile to more of a sort of a concave shape. There. So by doing that, we've now got all the, each thread is in a slightly different position to its neighbor. And so they're not stacking up, sort of above each other inside the text block. And the result is that we have a text block that now is pretty consistently 3 and a bit inches high, irrespective of where you measure. And the other thing to say is, this is perfectly normal as a profile for a book that's 400 years old. This is also 400 years old in its original vellum, and it has exactly the same profile. So there's nothing at all unusual about doing this. So now the question is going to be, how do we get the book, how do we get this text block to actually adopt this shape? And I think what I'm going to do is put it in this shape while we actually glue it. So the next step is I'm going to be gluing, like I do with all my restorations, I'm going to be heavily gluing the rear of the text block to set it into being sort of one object instead of 100 or so objects sewn together. And if we do that with this nice concave profile, I think we'll achieve the shapes that we want to achieve, and that'll be fine. So the next thing to do is to set this in such a way that we can glue it with this profile. Okay, so the text block is way too big for me to use my usual sort of pair of wooden clamps that I usually use. So I've had to sort of figure something out here. So what I've done is I've actually taken the boards that came with the text blocks when I purchased them, and I should point out I actually built out the corners a little bit just with papier-mâché. That's my usual recipe of glue mixed with toilet tissue. And then just allow it to dry, just in the original profile, and it just sort of builds the board back out a little bit. I've got 2 sets of weights here that are just going to act as anchors either side, and I just put some old socks basically down the middle here. What that's going to do is act as a barrier to force the text block into a concave shape, because I'm going to put the text block you know, the spine will be here this way. So that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to put these boards back where they were. They are definitionally exactly the right size for what we need. Now, I'm holding be careful to hold the text block in this sort of concave profile that I want to maintain. I'm just going to tip it up so that all the sort of strands of string are sort of hung out the way here. And I'm going to just sort of have it go in until it lands on that sock with all the string on the outside. Hopefully this will work. Bring everything over, nothing gets caught, like so. Then I'm going to push the whole lot together. This is why I'm using so much heavy weights on the table, just to anchor the whole thing in place, which I think that has worked. Okay, so now we've got this really nice profile, and this is what we're now going to administer a whole lot of glue to. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is give this thing a gentle, not even a shave, just a trim, just to get some of the excess thread off of here. So I'm going to be reasonably generous with the glue. What needs to happen is, to the extent that there are microscopic sort of spaces and gaps between each of these, I need the glue just to soak in a very, very short distance between them, and that'll help bind everything together, and it'll just turn this into one sort of cohesive object. I also want to glue all of these fibers down in one direction nicely, like this. This will also help if there are any of these fibers that are only a single knot. I don't want them to come unraveled, so sort of gluing them down like that will help. I'll do the same at the top. So this whole thing's going to take a lot of glue. I also need to have a lot of glue soak into the raised bands as well. So let's make a start here. We're going to need quite a lot of this stuff. I'm going to be reasonably generous. Everything here is just on a different scale to my other restorations. So, you know, the glue comes in a bowl, using a big brush to apply, and so on. We're not dealing with a little octavo anymore. So, all right, let's just make a start. Now it's literally just painting and decorating. String that shouldn't be there. I'm going to be careful about getting too much of the glue towards the edge. I don't want to moisten these corners because they're also made of glue and toilet tissue, so I don't want to have them start to lose structural integrity as I'm slathering them with more glue. So I'm going to try and keep the glue in the center here. Obviously the glue is going to, the one drawback of this concave profile is, you know, gravity does act on the glue, so it's going to cause the glue to want to migrate to the sides a little bit. I'm just going to use the brush to flatten down these strings like I don't want the strings themselves to have any great sort of height or profile, because that'll sort of detract from the raised bands as well. There we go. There we can go. From now on, it's a little bit simpler. If these things just get a little bit too long, I'll just trim them. Maybe it's just easier that way. Okay, I think that'll just about do it. The next step will be, as I'm sure you know from other videos, I'm going to be applying a sheet of fabric over this that will also have some glue on it, and then basically the whole thing will set nice and rigid, but I first want the glue just to have a chance to soak its way down into the paper a little bit, and that'll just give a really nice structure to the book. One thing I'm not too worried about is old glue bleeding. There was relatively little old glue in this text block. I think it had been a sort of a loose collection of gatherings for a very long time. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So I think that's about what I want to achieve. I'm gonna just put an extra dose at the bottom here just to act as just to give rigidity here, and I'll do the same thing at the top. There we go. There we go. Now let's get some fabric on here as well. So, in actual fact, the glue is kind of grabbing the fabric almost immediately, which I guess is a good thing. And I'm just feeding through the bands like so. Again, with other books I'd normally just be picking a little hole to push the band through, but in this case I'm putting the whole dental instrument through. So I'm getting a hole that's big enough to pull through the band. There we go. And then I'm just making sure that the fabric, there's enough slack in the fabric so it all just can settle down like so. And then I'm going to be sure to put more glue down here and then just continue the process all the way up until we have this fabric set in place properly. Okay, the fabric is now situated. So what I'm going to do now is put a supplementary coating of glue on. It's already picked up quite a bit of glue, honestly, from what's beneath it. But this is just a good opportunity. I can make, like here for example, I can just make the fabric really succumb to gravity, as it were. And like so. All the way up. It's a good opportunity just to, any folds, any air pockets, anything that you really want to get rid of to bring out the profile of the text block. Now's the time. I'm just going to use my sort of finger to work my way along the edges here. Just make sure I really get the profile where I want it to be. I will say there is the risk, in fact, it's a risk, I think it's a guarantee, that there may be a little bit of glue that strays onto those boards or even onto the first and last pages. So I'm going to have to just be really careful when this is all set and I take it apart not to damage anything, and I may just need to prise a few things apart here and there. But I think we should be in good shape shortly. Again, just work my finger around all these pockets, get the fabric to really bed down, and then eventually this will all be covered with a nice piece of leather, and these glorious raised bands will just show straight through. It'll really look pretty awesome. Again, just being careful, I don't want to get too much glue on that corner or it'll soften again, which I don't want. Okay, I think that's about it. So we're now going to let the text block rest and dry out overnight, and hopefully that'll be about, the text block will basically at that point be done, and we'll be looking at how we want to attach and decorate the boards.